Hello, good evening, and welcome to the regular City Council meeting for January the 17th. Mayor Steve Martin speaking. Before we get started, I'd like to read the following. The city has returned to hybrid public meetings pursuant to AB 361, which allows for a deviation from the teleconference rules required by the Ralph M. Brown Act. Residents now have the option to attend the meeting in person or to participate remotely. To participate remotely, residents can live stream the meeting at www.prcity.com/YouTube and call 805-865-7276 to provide public comment via phone. The phone line will open just prior to the start of the meeting and remain open throughout the meeting to ensure the opportunity to comment on each item heard by the council. City Council meetings will be live streamed during the meeting and also available to play later on YouTube by accessing the following link, www.prcity.com/YouTube. Any writing or document pertaining to an open session item on this agenda, which is distributed to a majority of the City Council after the posting of this agenda, will be available for public inspection at the time the subject writing or document is distributed. The writing or document will be available for public review in the City Clerk's Office, 1000 Spring Street, Paso Robles, California, during normal business hours. It may be posted on the city's website at www.prcity.com/agenda center. Americans with Disabilities Act. Any individual who, because of a disability, needs special assistance to attend or participate in this meeting may request assistance by contacting the City Clerk's Office at 805-237-3960. Whenever possible, requests should be made 4 working days in advance of the meeting. With that, I will call the meeting to order, invite you to stand as you are able to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilman Strong. Please remain standing for our invocation, led by Pastor Pat Sheehan.
With me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord God, during this New Year season when we are stirred by fresh hope for the coming year, we thank you for our elected leaders, Mayor Martin and Councilpersons Gregory, Hammond, Bosch, and Strong. Lift up Mayor Martin and Councilman Gregory for special healing virtues to be poured into them in the name of your Son. Fill them with the spirit of wisdom and revelation for every decision before them tonight. Father, bless our police and emergency services personnel who bravely serve and protect us all. May your grace be upon our city staff to give them all they need to manage and care for our city. Father, again, we thank you for your great love and many blessings poured out upon Paso. We thank you for all of this and ask it in the precious name of your Son. Amen.
Amen.
May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bausch.
Present.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Strong.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here. We'd like to set aside a few minutes in each meeting to introduce our staff in attendance. Also, if you happen to serve on an advisory committee or some other capacity, we invite you to stand as we go around the room. Identify yourself and your affiliations so we can recognize those people who do the work of the city. Starting on my right, please.
Mary Sponholtz, Deputy City Clerk.
Melissa Boyer, City Clerk, joined by Shauna Howenstein, Civic Engagement Coordinator, and Karen Jackson, IT Technician.
Dita Esperanza, Capital Projects Engineer.
Christopher Lucko,
Frida Berman, Public Instructor.
Mark Scandallis, Airport Manager. Tony Mornell, District Services Director. Stevie Gordon, Police Chief. Eric Cook, Airport Commission.
Chris Hewitt, Assistant City Manager.
Isaac Rosen, Assistant City Attorney.
Thank you very much. Our first item tonight is under presentations, Martin Luther King Jr. Proclamation for 2023. I would like to invite Sharon Williams to come forward for the presentation. Hello. Let's get out in the middle where they can see it. Thank you very much for being here tonight for this. So, proclamation in honor of the 2023 Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. Whereas, with profound faith in our nation's promise, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led a nonviolent movement that urged our country's leaders to expand the reach of freedom and provide equal opportunity for all, promoting the belief at the heart of our country's founding that humble citizens, armed with little bit faith, can come together to change the world and remake an America that more closely aligns with our highest ideals. Whereas Dr. King recognized that as a country built on the foundation of self-governance, our success rested on engaging ordinary citizens in the work of securing our birthright liberties, together with countless unsung heroes committed to the idea that America is a constant work in progress. He heeded the call etched into our founding documents nearly 2 centuries before his time, marching and sacrificing for the idea of a fair, just, and inclusive society. Whereas by preaching his dream of a day when his children would be judged by the content of their character rather than by the color of their skin, he helped awaken our nation to the bitter truth that basic justice for all had not yet been realized. And in his efforts, he peaceably yet forcefully demonstrated that equal opportunity for all of our nation's children is necessary so that they can shape their own destinies. Whereas the purpose of the Martin Luther King Jr. Committee is to promote remembrance and celebrate the life and message of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., while striving to educate, empower, and strengthen the Paso Robles community, and create among people of all ages, backgrounds, and abilities a heartfelt desire to move closer to Dr. King's vision of a unified community. Whereas residents of all races and beliefs came together in Paso Robles on January 16th to honor the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and to celebrate this year's theme, The Power of Love, starting a chain reaction to encourage acts of kindness and compassion within our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Stephen W. Martin, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor, and speaking on behalf of the entire City Council, to hereby entreat and to welcome the residents of Paso Robles to join in the celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and to uphold the ideals Dr. King represents today and always. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. On behalf of the Martin Luther King Jr. Committee, it's an honor to receive this proclamation. And I also would like to take this opportunity to thank the community that joined in a celebration over yesterday. We had an amazing event and a march, and it all took place at downtown City Park. So once again, thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have the Airport Commission presentation. Mr. Gaspar?
Mr. Mayor.
But first,
First, Mark Scandalis, Airport Manager. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thanks for having me. I'm here to give an update on the exciting opportunity to host the British Royal Air Force and their high-altitude parachute training operations at the municipal airport. A little history of how we've gotten here. In February of 2022, after over a decade of hosting the Royal Air Force at San Luis Obispo County Airport, the county gave notice that they could no longer host the aircraft, or the RAF, due to the increased size of the new A400M aircraft. In June of 2022, the city was presented with the idea of hosting the RAF. Much like the county, the city shared the concerns of the larger size of the aircraft, so the city entered into an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with ACI Jet, our fixed-based operator, and the city. The main points of that MOU were to indemnify the airfield for any potential damage to the airfield by RAF assets, and also to conduct an airfield pavement study and an engineering analysis that could ensure that we could handle the size of this aircraft. And the graphic you see up here is a visual representation of what that engineer's recommendation is. This is a high-level interpretation of the results as a whole. The full data set and analysis is going to be coming in likely Q2 of 2023. Once we have that document, it'll help the city make policy decisions based on real scientific data and help evaluate long-term effects of heavy aircraft at the airport. But for right now, you can see areas of green are areas that are okay to use by heavy aircraft. Yellow are areas that should be avoided when not operationally necessary, whether that be questionable pavement strength, issues with wingtip clearance or geometry, or disruption of historical users of the airport. And that concludes my presentation. I'd like to introduce Mr. Tony Gaspar from the Airport Commission to detail the Commission's recommendation to the Council.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for having me here. Again, my name is Tony Gaspar, and I am one of the 6 commissioners that serve on the Airport Commission. We were tasked on December 8th with, by the city, we were tasked to consider the operations of the RAF A400 aircraft at Paso Robles, and specifically we were asked to consider overall impacts to the airfield and to give recommended taxi route and parking positions for the RAF aircraft. Not just the A400, but primarily the A400 because it's the largest aircraft. The Airport Commission discussed at length the Tartaglia engineering report and recommendations. After much discussion, a motion was made to recommend to the City Council to allow the A400 aircraft to operate at Paso Robles Airport under the supervision and handling of ACI Jet, with the parking locations and taxi movements at the discretion of ACI Jet. The motion passed 5-1 with 1 commissioner absent. The key factors that weighed into the Airport Commission's recommendation are this. With respect to movement of the aircraft and taxiing, the report, as you can see on that on the screen, has identified yellow areas, red areas, and green areas. The red areas are areas to be avoided at all, as much as possible. The yellow areas should be avoided, and the green areas are where the report thought that the airport was well suited to handle the movement of the aircraft. While the A400 is a large airplane, it's designed in a way to have a similar ACN classification as other aircraft that currently operate at the airfield. In other words, the ACN number is a way of determining or a way of showing the impact of the aircraft on the concrete or on the hard surface. Its ACN number is similar to other aircraft that are currently operating unrestricted at the airfield. ACI Jet provides, so this is also with respect to aircraft taxiing and movement, ACI Jet provides FBO operations and services at several large airports that are larger and busier than Paso Robles, and is well versed at moving large aircraft without damaging those aircraft or other aircraft on the field. Lastly, ACI Jet did or has indemnified the airfield against damage to the airfield. With respect to parking, this was a big topic for discussion, because the question is, where do you park a big aircraft like that, and does it matter? Well, the report suggested that the aircraft be parked at the south ramp, which is in the picture you can see, it says preferred parking there in a white box. It was recommended by the engineering company that that's where they park the aircraft. The commission considered that, but was concerned that the south ramp is quite a distance from the terminal building, It's also where many services are available, such as restrooms, restaurant, and other services. And the Commission recognized that the main concrete terminal apron should be available to the RAF aircraft as is available to other similar weight class aircraft. So the Commission felt that even though the main area in front of the terminal is in yellow, we felt that it's available to other similarly weighted aircraft and it should be available to the RAF. The RAF also uses the large, will be using the large Kyoto hangar for packing its chutes and other mission tasks, and having the aircraft parked right next to those operations will facilitate their missions. Lastly, the Commission took into consideration the importance of affording the RAF aircraft and its crew, or it's the RAF aircraft crews and its servicemen and women, the best possible experience at the Paso Robles Airport that we can offer. We recognize that the RAF has a choice on where it wants to train and where it can train in the United States, and that the Airport Commission wants Paso Robles Airport to be the best possible host. We felt that allowing it to park where it wants to park and where ACI Jet will allow the aircraft to park is the best way to move forward. With that, I am open to any questions that Council may have.
Thank you for that report, and thank you for the Commission's review of the situation. It's a significant operation at the airport, and it's good to have it totally vetted like that. This is an informational presentation. No action is required. I'll ask if there are any council questions, and since Mr. Gregory is online tonight, I'll start with him.
No questions. I just like to thank Tony for his report. It's very, very well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council questions?
Yes, Mayor.
Is there anyone in the public has a comment or a question about this report? If you'd come to the front, please. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name's Elliot Cannon, 405 Fairview Lane. I've seen this airplane up close. It's a beautiful airplane. It's a very interesting airplane. If anybody in the audience has any interest in aviation at all, and to meet some of these British, there's Special Air Service guys. They're equivalent to our Navy SEALs. And if you've got any interest in that at all, come out there, and if it's there, walk up, introduce yourself, take a look at the airplane, because it's a fascinating airplane.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, Council. Bill Borgsmiller, CEO of ACI Jet. We're the FBO. We participate in this presentation. And mainly, I want to introduce Dell here, who's one of those officers he was just talking about, and he can just introduce himself and tell you guys a little bit about what they're doing out there. But I also want to assure you that we do appreciate the Commission's consideration of where to park the airplane, and our assurance to them is, that apron right in front of the terminal, it's the best place to park for sure at the airport. But we do have the ability to move the airplanes, and our goal is that every airplane that comes to Paso Robles has the best experience out there. So we're not letting the RAF park there at the expense of other airplanes not being able to park there. We're managing everything in real time like we do at all of our ramps. So if it's a busy day, then maybe we do use the south ramp more. If it's not, so we coordinate all that in real time, because our goal is when anybody lands, whether it's a little 2-seat airplane with a young kid learning to fly, or it's an A400 with 100 guys getting off of it, that every airplane gets the best experience, and the airport doesn't favor one over the other, which is also a grant assurance. So we're covering everybody's interest with the FAA as well. But with that, I'll introduce Del with the British Royal Air Force.
Mayor, Council, my name's Squadron Leader Del Blair. I'm the detachment commander from the Royal Air Force. The first thing I'd like to say is to thank you and the town for the wonderful warm welcome that we've had here. You have a beautiful city, and we're delighted that you've given the consideration to allow us to operate here. Weather aside, so far, our initial operations have been very successful. Luckily, today, the weather has started to pick up, and we're starting to achieve all of the training that we had hoped for. So really early days for us, but I'm very hopeful that this can be a long and successful relationship between both the city of Paso Robles and the Royal Air Force. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Del, I was going to say publicly, thank you for coming to Rotary and introducing yourself. It was a very informative program that you gave last week to a lot of Rotarians. And again, welcome to Paso Robles.
thank you very much, and thank you for having me there. And again, I'd like to echo the point from earlier. If you are in the airport area, please feel free to approach us. We'd be delighted to show you around the aircraft and have a chat about what we're doing here.
I think we're going to be moving the open house to February now, I heard also.
Yes, I think so, but I'm very much looking forward to it.
Very good. Thank you, Dale.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Dale Augustin, Paso Robles. I came here in '79 and I got involved in the chamber, and I also represented Golden Carriage Air. And at that time in the 80s, I was made aware of just how important that airport is, not only from the standpoint of Golden Carriage Air, but also from the standpoint of Ben Reddick did an editorial and said that the airport road was the future of Paso Robles because of the airport. I agree with what Ben Reddick said in the 80s is still true.
Thank you. I see no one else rising in the room to speak. I see no one online with a question. Thank you very much for the information. A significant step forward for our airport. We look forward to a long cooperation with your team. Councilman Hammond and I have had the good fortune of actually sitting in the cockpit of that airplane. And I could still be sitting there counting the buttons if I wanted to, but it's pretty impressive. So thank you so much. Okay, we move on now to item number 3, which is our Supplemental Sales Tax Oversight Committee update.
Yes. Hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Ryan Cornell, Administrative Services Director. Tonight we have an opportunity to report out the activities of the City Supplemental Oversight Sales Tax Committee. Just a little bit of a background. The city has 2 sales tax overrides that voters approved. One back in 2012, it's Measure E12. That's a half-cent supplemental sales tax that generates about $6 million per year for the city. It is the main source of the road and street maintenance program. That has a 12-year automatic sunset of March 31st, 2025. Similarly, in 2020, the voters approved a 1-cent supplemental sales tax. Again, very similar to the E12 one, but this one's a whole cent, so it generates about $12 million per year. Similarly, it has a sunset of 12 years, and that expires on March 31st, 2033. As I had mentioned, the E12 is primarily for street and road maintenance. J20 has that component in there as well as enhancement to public safety, both police and fire. And so every quarter we meet with the Supplemental Sales Tax Oversight Committee. And these are kind of some of the things that we present to them. We go over the E12, we go over each of the road segments that have been paved over the last year or the last quarter. We do provide actually figures and numbers, amounts that we actually expended on the roads. For this purposes, I only put up the street segments that are kind of in progress and upcoming. But you can see right there at the top, since the inception of E12, so since 2013 or so, it has provided funding for over 30 different road projects, totaling about $47.7 million. And then we have still plenty of roads to maintain and get to. So we have about $27.5 million of committed budget appropriations to those streets on the right-hand side there. Similarly, with J20, we're on the public safety side. The council approved appropriations for personnel enhancement in police and fire. You can see there, I won't list them all off. And also some additional personnel at the street maintenance crew. In addition to people and enhancing the operations of fire police, we also are doing some one-time investments. The construction of fire station number 3 is pretty much solely funded with J20. The upgrades to the data 911 system, which are currently in place, was kind of a mixture of general funds and J20 to supplement some of the shortfalls. And then some similarity with the substation evidence storage and some shortfalls in the street plan. But all of that is predicated on an oversight committee that's looking that those expenditures are actually being spent on what council directed it being on. And so as part of the committee's roles and responsibilities, they are to report out to city council and to the community any of its findings or reports out from that committee. So with that being said, Mr. Keith Belmont, he is the vice chair of the Supplemental Sales Tax Oversight Committee, is here present. He'd like to say a few words in regards to the committee.
Thank you, Ryan. Good evening, Council. First of all, an observation really regarding the staff. They've been a terrific member of this. We couldn't do it really without them. I'm always amazed that whenever we have questions that either Ryan or Deedist have the answers pretty fast, and if not, they'll bring them to us or send us an email later. So just wanted to recognize the good work the staff's doing. The meeting structures, I mean, they're pretty typical general meeting, business meeting, like Ryan said, once a quarter. We get the detailed financial reports. We go over them. If we've got any questions, they answer. They've given us a lot of detail on the project status. I think Deedist had mentioned that over 40% of the roads, all of the roads in Paso Robles have now been resurfaced, which is great to see. I'm sure, hopefully the public notices that. And then there's time for discussion. There's a few things I'll mention that we've talked about after I've finished the findings here. We found all the time that they're being spent properly in the way that they were designated. We really don't have a lot to do with it, but under the J20, we recognize that the police are having a very difficult time. Unfortunately, it's not unusual in this country right now. So while it's not our responsibility, we certainly are sympathetic and happy to do anything we can, but that's been a challenge for them. Even though the funds are there, they can't get the people to fill it. There's still only 44% of this is going to be is done, and this expires next basically a year from now. So we don't have the funds to finish the rest at this time. We think really the time to start talking about that is now, and I think that's why it's in this, rather than wait until we decide as a council, as a town, that we would like to do that again to finish this. We really need to step up that and talking about it now, and that's part of our responsibility, and we need to really address that in this coming year. So that, let's see, I had a couple more comments. Oh, one of the things was we continue to try and resist the temptation ourselves to talk about the priorities of the streets or our favorite streets, or when are you going to do my street or that street, my neighbor's street. So we have to kind of keep reminding ourselves that we're not there for that purpose, but we also need to make sure we find out when that subject comes up again so that we can come at the proper time and talk to you, give you our input about that priority. And there was some comments about, can these funds also be used for sidewalks? Because there's a lot of sidewalks around that are tripping hazards, or simply there's a spot where for 40 years there's not been any sidewalk, and we keep waiting for somebody to remodel their house to the extent that they have to do the sidewalk. Well, maybe it's time that we think about using some of these funds to finish those so we have a nice walking community. Okay, I think I've covered everything.
Yes, thank you very much for that. And again, this is an informational item. We're not voting on anything tonight. So questions from council. And John, if I may start with Steve.
Sure.
Mr. Gregory, you're up.
No questions. Mr. Belmont covered it nicely. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond?
Thank you for your report, Keith. With your oversight, have you seen any evidence that this, essentially the J20, which is starting to come down to the end, or the E12 monies have been spent unwisely or differently than they should have been?
No, I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear. I thought I did. No evidence from what we can see that it's not being spent the way it was appropriated.
Right. That's exactly what I was wondering. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Strong?
Yes, the question of the sidewalks and some of those things. Since the state of California has redefined the definition of street in the whole new complete streets legislation, does that give you the right to then spend this money in and of itself because the definition has been changed?
That's a question I can't answer. Presumably Ryan can.
With any sort of project, right, if depending on what kind of treatment is placed on the road will trigger those ADA requirements or not. And so if there are triggered ADA requirements, we will upgrade those ramps and those curbs and sidewalks. But otherwise, if it's just a normal, Surrey slur treatment, we don't typically update the sidewalks at that time, only so we could get more maintenance on the roads than on sidewalks. Granted, that's a city council in direction too. So should city council want to more focus on the infills of the sidewalks, we can. But it comes with the less of a road segment being maintained.
That answers my question. I'm not saying that it's mandated to do it, but that we can use the definition if we choose to do so. Yes.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, Measure E12 is unrestricted for any sort of governmental purposes by definition.
Councilman Bosch.
Thank you. Mr. Belmont, thank you for a great presentation. You mentioned starting to think about whether we renew the funding mechanism. It's come up a few times, and more of a general observation as we go forward with this. Citizens have questioned, have we spent this money wisely? Yes, it seems like we have. We spent it appropriately. Was it enough? It doesn't seem like it was enough. If it, or to the degree that it is possible, some effort into how much is left and what it will cost, I think will certainly come up if that's at all possible as we go forward to renew this.
As is like how much road costs is needed to finish off the streets.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Information report. Anybody in the room would like to make a comment? This is your opportunity. Welcome.
Dale Gustin again. The city, in its efforts to encourage commercial development out on Commerce Way, made a very wide street to accommodate all those trucks. But those trucks have destroyed that street. You need to consider finding funds to fix Commerce Way. It's horrible.
Thank you, sir. I see no one else rising. I see no one's waiting in line online. Mr. Ryan, did you have a comment?
Yes, I wanted to do another plug if you don't mind.
Please.
We do have the terms of the supplemental sales tax members. We have 2 that are expiring. And so we are currently accepting applications for any members of the community that's interested in serving the board. The information is right here on this slide, or you can find it on our city's website as well.
Thank you very much. And I just want to add that since we began this process of utilizing these sales tax overrides for street maintenance and repair, the existence and the work of the Special Tax Override Committee has been critical. From the very beginning, we knew that we needed that type of verification from our citizens that their money was being put where we said it was going to be put. And we're very thankful for the work that the committee has done over the years in making sure that our community is confident in the transparent and authentic use of those funds. So thank you for those services. We appreciate it. Next item, City of Paso Robles website update. I have Mr. Huat's name on that.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. At your December 20th meeting, there was, I believe, a public speaker that asked about the status of the city's website update. And I think at the time, I generically kind of said that it would be updated in first quarter of 2023. Well, we're here now because it is the first quarter of 2023 with some exciting news. We're in the process right now of putting the final touches on the visual update, meaning the look and the feel of the new website, in which we're going to share with you in just a moment. It's part of a 2-phase approach to update the site. The first is kind of painting or figuring out the type of canvas that we're going to be using, which we have. And then the second is the content or then what's going to be updated in terms of formatting and the look and the feel, because some of the styles and menu and design has changed. That's going to dictate then and drive content updates, which our team is going to be doing over the next 3 months or so. I believe in March, we're actually going to be sitting down with most of the folks that have a day-to-day hand in updating the website and going through a best practices workshop and making sure that we're providing the most relevant content for the public, as well as making those search functions that we hear about on the website as functional as possible. And that's driven largely in part by the wording and what's on the website itself and the content and the documents that are there. Before we show you the homepage, which we're going to look at tonight, this will become live, I think, in a couple of days. It was born out of purely just a basic redesign. It's super mobile friendly, but it was not done through a complete rebranding process that wasn't behind this. I just want to make that clear. This wasn't driven by typically a longer rebranding process. We did use Civic Plus, which is our website designer of record now. And they are ones that work with local governments across the country. So they have certainly are well-versed in best practice and provided a lot of great guidance. So with understanding that design is subjective, I want to hopefully show you here the new website, and we'll just look at that's not it. There we are. So we've updated color palettes. Ms. Howenstein has been working to update our photo library. That photo will rotate, so we've got some different pictures of various assets and images of the community. Again, really mobile friendly. So this is on the desktop, obviously, but if you're looking at it from your phone when it is live, I was very, very impressed with how easy it was to navigate from a phone. All the fun information that everyone's looking for, driven in part by data. What are people searching and looking for? Tried not to make it overly intensive with text or a lot of menus and bullet points, that sort of thing. Just very simple, straight to the point. I think we saved the best for last. So as folks scroll down the page, look at the calendar, and then right beyond that, we have some good pictures and some nice biographies. So really are proud of the work that we've done. Again, looking just to kind of refresh the look and the feel and the design, update it with best practices. And then again, the content is going to be updated here in the coming months with a real focus and a real dedication of staff time to do that, because we know that is equally or more so important than just the look and the feel. So with that, that's the presentation. Happy to answer any questions. Again, just wanted to give a quick shout out to former IT manager Dave McHugh, Karen Jackson, Shauna Howenstein, and Sean Eisner, current IT manager, for their work on this. Appreciate it. And then last thing, any feedback or information that the public would like to share, once we do launch, info@prcity.com is going to be a great opportunity for feedback. And then we are going to work on a survey at some point in the not too distant future to try to get some more general feedback on look, feel, content above and beyond kind of what staff has determined needs to change. We're certainly going to be engaging the community as well.
Very good. Once again, an information report. Questions from council, Mr. Gregory?
Yeah, Chris, I have a question. So this is we'll have the layout and the operational part of this coming online first, and then you'll be working on the content.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, sir. That's what our plan is right now. Yes.
That's very good. It looks really nice from what I can see. It's a little easier to operate. So thank you.
Thank you. Other council comments or questions, Mr. Bausch?
I have a suggestion. Just coming on the heels of the recent election, there's a lot of confusion about trustee and council member and supervisor district and trustee areas, et cetera. If there could be a link that would make that easier for citizens to navigate. Where do I live? Whose district am I in? Thank you.
Thank you.
Other council comments?
Just well done. I hope anybody my age or older appreciates any help we can get.
Make the fonts big. Right? Public comments. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Dale Guston again. Maybe it's in there. I'm not sure, but I like to see links to Travel Paso, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Main Street. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the room? Seeing no one rise, I see no one online. Thank you for that presentation. great refreshment to the city's website. Going to help a lot of people get access to a lot of information a lot more quickly and more easily, which is always great. We move on now to general public comments, the time the public may address the council on items within the council's purview, but not scheduled on the agenda. All persons desiring to speak on an agenda item are asked to fill out speaker information cards and give them to the city clerk prior to speaking. Each individual speaker will be limited to a presentation total of 3 minutes per item. These persons wishing to speak on any item scheduled on the agenda will be given an opportunity to do so at the time that item is being considered. State law does not allow the council to discuss or take action on issues not on the agenda, except that members of the council or staff may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed by persons exercising their public testimony rights. With that, if you have a general public comment, we invite you to fill out a speaker card, which should be located in the back of the room. Bring it forward, identify yourself, please, and we're happy to give you 3 minutes. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Dale Gusson again, and I did fill out a card under the general comment because my concern is that, I came here in 79 and for 35 years had a successful practice all within the city limits of Paso Robles. My offices were always within the city limits. And I was proud to be a Paso Robles attorney. And I love the city. The only thing I had concern about was when I moved from helping the Chamber of Commerce start the first wine festival, I later joined Main Street. And Main Street was very active in a lot of activities going downtown and even brought a concern about employee parking. In 2018, I attended a presentation in Pleasanton wherein they presented a time parking for the downtown that worked, no paid parking. And I brought that back to the city. And the city rejected that in favor of Julie Dixon's $1 million boondoggle, as I call it. And even at the last meeting, the majority of the people talking about changing the downtown parking said they wanted time parking, not paid parking. On a 3-2 vote, that was rejected in favor of paid parking. I'm going to present you Pleasanton's map that worked, and they used license plate recognition, and it's time parking only. And I'd ask that you reconsider paid parking in favor of time parking. There's enough there to go around. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the room who'd like to comment? Seeing no one rise, I have 2 people waiting online for general public comment. The first is Mr. John Borst. Mr. Borst, are you with us, sir?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Excellent. My particular comment is directed towards a 2015 water rate analysis and study by Water Consultancy, I guess it's HDR. In regards to what appears on page 11 in that report, the citizens, or at least the water customers in this community, have been paying on a project that is no longer under consideration. For fiscal year 2019-20, the city says that they need monies for $8.6 million, and in fiscal year 2021, they need $21 million to expand the water treatment plant to 4 million gallons a day. We learned on the December 20 meeting that expansion is no longer under consideration. I would like to know when this $8.6 million and $21 million are going to be returned to water customers in the city. What is your plan for doing so?
Okay, we'll try to get you that answer before we finish up with public comments. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's it. I think this is an item that needs to come to your attention.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did I not recognize that you were going to speak, sir?
Probably.
Okay, let me take one more and then you're next, okay? Our second person online is Jan Albin. Jan, are you with us?
Yes, this is Jan Albin. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thank you. Notice of tonight's City Council meeting with the agenda came to me via email on Friday the 13th. And because the city was closed yesterday, there was no one available to answer any questions about the new format until this morning. Getting to that front page was almost not doable via that email. But when I talked to the city clerk, she said that there was a mention of the new website at the December 20th meeting. And that would be the same meeting that you all needed to schedule just 5 days before Christmas, the same meeting that because of the date would be poorly attended and poorly listened to. But I'm wondering how you all thought that a mention of this new website to a very few listeners was adequate notice. I'm wondering how absolutely no one in the city thought of putting a notice in the city newsletter or on the website opening page, and possibly letting folks know where to go and who to call with questions. I'm on that site several times a week, and I had no warning or site guidance at all. I can usually figure my way around a site, but trust me, lots of folks cannot. This city, in my opinion, the city is remiss in its duty to keep the public informed of pertinent information, and why you don't feel that obligation is disturbing. Personally, I've had several conversations with this council, the city manager, and the staff about your failure to keep the public informed. The response is always the same: yes, and we should do better. But your protocols never change. You continue to travel down the road with a mindset of the less they know, the better. You tell me that's not the case, but it kind of is. When you fail to keep us informed, we get angry and we get frustrated. I realize it can be difficult in today's world of internet-only information, but you're all on the same sites we're on, and staff should be working hard to keep people up to date, not leave them in the dark. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And yes, sir, your turn. Welcome.
Okay. I don't know if I want to follow that. My name is Kendall Pearson. I own the flight school at the airport. So kind of going with the theme of airport stuff tonight, I spoke in front of you 8, 9, 10 months ago maybe, and I'm going to ask you the same question. Right now, the folks that you saw here that spoke earlier, we have a FBO at the airport and the fixed base operator, the people that provide services. The contract for that FBO has expired. We're on our second 1-year extension. That will end on July 1st. My understanding in the subcommittee from the Airport Commission, we attend those meetings also. They've completed their work, and the proposal or the process or the next step for developing the request for proposal for the next FBO is in the city's hands now. So I'm just being a little pushy, maybe. This affects my business.
Of course.
What that business does and the services they provide, I have to be able to maintain airplanes. I have to buy fuel. I'm interested in knowing where that process is now. And as a 40-year veteran of local government myself, I know the wheels grind slowly, but if we're going to get a new or the same or a newly ordained FBO in less than 6 months, we should have had something issued by now to get respondents back to start evaluating proposals. So my question is, where are we in that process?
Let's see if we can get the answer for you, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else in the room has a comment? I see no one else online. I'm going to close general public comment, bring it back with the questions that were posed. First, Mr. Borst was talking about water rate analysis and his assertion that ratepayers are paying for projects that are not underway or not being considered anymore. Wants to know if millions of dollars are going to be returned to ratepayers.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As you know, our
Our water rates are based on these very detailed studies that we do that tie back to our water system master plans, and which projects all the infrastructure needs of the utility way out into the future, decades out into the future. So when we develop these water rates, we have to make certain assumptions about when these capital projects are going to be needed. Sometimes those needs change, sometimes priorities are shifted. That doesn't necessarily mean that we no longer need this infrastructure. We've seen significant demands, reduction in community-wide water demands, which has allowed us to push off the construction of that surface water treatment plant expansion. We're still planning to do so, but it's important for the city to understand that, and the community to understand that Nas Mineral Water is the most expensive water we have. So we don't want to accelerate the construction of that plant before the time we actually need it, because it would drive up water rates even higher. So the current rate study and the current rates that just passed by council accurately show when we anticipate building the second phase or expansion of that surface water treatment plant. It's not that we're not going to build it anymore. It's just that we've been able to push the can down the road just because of the changing dynamics of water.
So I want to make sure that I understand this. There is a direct connection between part of the water rates that we have in place right now with these specific projects you're talking about, and we'll eventually go to pay for those projects, but because of intervening strategies that help us reduce water rates to the community by stretching the time period out, the construction of those facilities will not be as soon as we had originally anticipated.
Yeah, and one very important note here regarding the expansion of that plant. That plant is not going to be funded by our existing customers. That's going to be funded through the collection of connection fees that are paid for by development when development happens.
Very good. Thank you. To Ms. Album's concern, obviously, for us anyway, a high priority that we keep the public informed. A lot of things in flux here, the holiday schedules, the change in the website. She was very concerned that there was a paucity of information regarding tonight's meeting and other information that could have been put into the city's newsletter. Can somebody comment on those actions?
Yeah, Mayor, I'll try to take that one. So as I believe we updated you at last meeting, the city is going through a update to the agenda management software behind the scenes. Essentially what puts together the agenda up to this point is a very manual process. The city clerk in particular was spending upwards of 12 to 14 hours per agenda, stitching everything together to get to the final product that you see and that the public sees. It was a very inefficient use of her time, if I may be so candid. And one best practice is to utilize a agenda management platform that essentially does a lot of the tedious work. And in doing so, immediately there is, I used the term earlier, there's some sausage being made kind of as we go through this process, which includes what the public is experiencing on the front end of the website. I just want to be clear that the links haven't changed. How to access the agenda hasn't changed. There are some differences in the look of it right now, but that soon will change again. We will certainly take the feedback. Always want to try to provide as much leeway as we can. Some of the work, it's not being done on the fly, but it certainly is being done in a way that is we're going to be in flux for a meeting or two before we nail it down. On the agenda webpage today for this meeting, there was both an HTML and a PDF version, and not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but the HTML version for the time being. If you look for future meetings, there's a little TV icon under the media column on that same agenda page. Click on that. That's going to have all the active links to all the staff reports and backup documents, similar to how the public has been accessing the agenda in previous times. The main link, and folks that go to that site will know, the main link there to click on, that's going to give a PDF version, which doesn't have those active links, but what it does have is a table of contents that serves a similar purpose. So again, understand that we're going through a little bit of change. But when you look at the big picture, there's a lot of good benefit on both sides of the coin for this one, we feel. So we'll continue to be able to take that feedback and hopefully work with Ms. Albin and others in the future to make sure public's aware.
Thank you. Councilman Hammond?
Yeah, Chris, I had a comment again that today is basically the first night that we've seen this, and I think it works better than, I mean, for me to find things within the agenda. And I'm just going to ask Madam Clerk if she's happier with it. I mean, it sounds like it's working better, but maybe Melissa can give us a little input.
I can say that the process itself was so much simpler overall. We're still putting a lot of time and effort and energy into getting everything and all the different parts working together right now. But in terms of just putting the agenda itself together, huge time saver, huge.
Mm-hmm. So. And the last question I had directly to the website was, once it gets launched, we're going to be able to make changes en route. In other words, as we see things and a comment from public, we're going to be able to tweak it, aren't we?
Yeah, so with the website in particular and the content on the website, what I failed to mention earlier, yeah, it's a living, breathing thing. So we can update it in real time as we typically do. But absolutely, the agenda system too, the look and the feel of kind of that agenda portal is going to change in the not too distant future as well. But I can tell you it'll be intuitive in no time. I know several cities, and Melissa probably has them offhand better than I can remember them right now, but several cities in the region are using this same platform. We receive very positive feedback.
Thank you.
Other council comments? Councilman Rausch?
So thank you for the comment on the media. I just clicked on that, and you're absolutely right. That works amazing. I missed that when I was trying to do that. So maybe a little explanation up at the top of the page, Agenda Center, instructions, click on that. I missed that, and I normally don't miss that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and just one more point of clarification, yes, because the Agenda Center look and feel is going to change where that exactly will be more pronounced in what it is, because we're kind of mishmashing two systems right now as we make this transition. But we'll add the language. I think that's fine. We can definitely add the language at the top of the webpage.
That being said, I do like the format of the agenda. That works a lot seamlessly. So thank you for that.
Councilman Gregory, any comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of things from me. I think that if we haven't already, plans to get this into the newsletter for the city are very important. And moving ahead, since it is a change and, people react to change in different ways, it might be advisable to, in the newsletter and perhaps with a series of short YouTube videos, to say, here's how you do this on the city's website. Here's how you find out about this. And just break it into small chunks so that people can find the very specific item they're trying to deal with, and then have a visual of how to make that happen. And I think that'll help a lot of people instructionally with that. Very pleased to hear, and I haven't seen it yet because it obviously isn't live, very pleased to hear that it's going to be very effective on mobiles, because as we all know, most people deal with the internet now on their smartphones. A lot of sites are not designed for smartphones, and you have a harder time finding what you want on your phone than you do on your computer. So it's very important that we're able to do that. Question: currently, people under the old website were able to opt in on subjects so they could automatically be notified about when it came in front of the council. Is that going to be also preserved?
Yeah, there will be features where you can opt into getting alerts on certain things.
And one final comment from me on this: I think far from being stuck and calcified in the ways that we try to get information to the public, I think this demonstrates a real process change that will facilitate more information to the people that honestly want to get the information in or seek and get out. So keeping that effort alive is very good. Thank you very much for that. We have one other question regarding the FBO contract expiration. Can someone give us a status report on where we're on that?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Frida Berman, Public Works Director. Yes, the speaker is correct. The current contract expires in July. Staff is hyper aware of that date. As he also mentioned, and is true, the airport subcommittee and staff have been working on a draft RFP for FBO services, but I think we all recognize that the airport is at a critical stage, and we want to make sure that we see the entire vision of the airport moving forward, and that is in large part plays into the FBO RFP and those services that will be provided. We are about to embark on a comprehensive airport assessment that starts tomorrow, and that also will play into this final version of the RFP. I know 6 months is a short period of time, but I just want to reassure that there will be no lapse in services, and we are working diligently to get the right RFP on the streets.
And I assume that you're in communication with the gentleman that spoke tonight, keeping it informed.
Yes, Mr. Scandalis, the airport manager, is in communication with.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Gregory, any questions on this issue?
No, none for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Other council comments? Good. Very good. Thank you very much. We are finished with general public comments. I move on now. Ask the assistant city manager if we have any agenda items to be deferred on tonight's agenda.
No, sir.
Thank you. Item I is the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine, not requiring separate discussion. However, if discussion is wanted by a member of the council or public, the item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Council members and members of the public may offer comments or ask questions or clarification without removing an item from the calendar. Individual items are approved by the vote that approves the consent calendar, unless an item is pulled for separate consideration. Items pulled from consent will be heard at the end of the meeting. So with that, we look now at our consent calendar. I will ask the council if there are any questions or items to be pulled. First, Mr. Gregory.
Yeah, just for a public service announcement, could we have Frida or somebody from Public Works just discuss the approval of the $3.5 million on the street repairs, what that entails briefly?
Item 9. Yeah, I was going to ask.
Item 9. Okay, we'll have a brief comment on item 9. Any other council, Mr. Bausch?
So just an observation, don't necessarily want to pull this, but for I-8, applicant submitted Exhibit B, and it looks like it has an expired date for the restricted materials permit.
Okay, we'll get a comment on that then.
Thank you. Or just have staff get a current one.
Sure. Any other council comment?
No.
Is there anyone in the public that has a comment or would like to have an item pulled? If you'd come to the microphone, please.
Good evening, Mayor Martin and council members. Wow, this is short. You'll hear me, Neil. I would, on number 9, if it's approved for the Measure J funds for street repairs, I asked the council to consider prioritizing Fairview Lane, the neighborhood behind Flamson Middle School. We joke in the neighborhood that you need a four-wheel drive or an off-road vehicle to get up the road. The neighborhood actually shoulders quite a bit of additional traffic other than just our neighbors. We always host every sports event, every graduation. We diligently, as neighbors, pick up all the trash afterwards, and you know we're fine with it. It's part of the community, and it's actually really fun. But it does cause additional wear and tear on the roads, and they're rough. And so we just would like that to be considered. And on a side note, the website looks awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the room? Please come to the podium, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, and Happy New Year, everybody. My name is Elliot Cannon. I live at 405 Fairview Lane. I've been there almost 16 years now, and that street is in badly need of repair. And I just wanted to encourage whoever is responsible for choosing which street is next, whom I don't always agree with. Fairview Lane is an eyesore. It's pretty bad. It's been chopped up pretty bad. And it is occasional, like my neighbor just said, it's an occasional parking lot for events at the football field there. But it's been patched and repatched and patched again since I've been there. So I would encourage anyone who's responsible for choosing the next street to be repaired to think about Fairview Lane, maybe go up there and take a look at it. And I just would like to encourage anyone who's responsible for that to consider Fairview Lane and adjacent streets as well.
Elliot, I think you're going to be very happy in a few minutes.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, John.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else in the public? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you so much, Madam Mayor and Councilman and women. My name is Jillian. I also live on Fairview, 154 Fairview. I've lived there for about 11 years. We do host all the traffic from all the sports events, all the practice events, all the graduations, everything. I don't appreciate picking up the trash. I don't think it's fun. I actually think it's really rude, but that's our neighborhood and we're going to keep it clean. I know, I love you guys. I would absolutely love you guys to consider repaving Fairview. Every single year we see right before all the sports events get handled in our neighborhood, the patchwork comes out. And from the park down, the patchwork looks great. But as soon as you leave the park and go a little bit further up the hill, it's a nightmare. The kids can't ride the bikes down the streets because they're going to hit a pothole and literally road rash their face. So I would love for you guys to consider Fairview to be one of the streets that is being repaved, because obviously it's being used by everybody, not just the people in Paso Robles, and we want it to look good for everybody when they come because we represent our town. So thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else? Welcome, sir. Let me guess.
You might guess. More support for Fairview neighborhood. So I'm also in the Fairview neighborhood and been there for about 5 years now. I do have a 4-wheel drive, so I'm getting around okay. Got a steep driveway too. But there has been tons of patchwork and it just doesn't hold up. My opinion and my suggestion is that when it does get addressed, it should be something that can handle the weight of those recycling and refuse trucks that come through. They're the ones that are making those abrupt stops. And I'm fairly certain these are the ones that are actually tearing up the roads. And so that's just my thought on that. And thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And sir, could you state your name for the record, please?
Neil Duncan in the Fairview neighborhood.
Anyone else in the room like to speak? I see no one rising. I see no one online. We're going to close public comment on the consent calendar. We had a couple of questions posed by council members. First, Mr. Hammond.
Actually, I was going to, if I could, have Deedus do a report on item 9 verbally and show maybe the map.
Okay, if we're going to do that, let's go ahead and pull it.
That's what I'd like to try to do.
So,
just a brief report. Yeah.
Are we going to get, because we've talked about this quite a bit already, we can pull it.
You want to do it at the end?
Let's do it.
Or because it's off the point?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I want to take a second.
Yes, members of mayor, members of the city council. So the staff report that was before you noted that there was some money available from J20 to be used towards additional street maintenance. And in November, you directed staff to come up with some options to use those funds, about $3.5 million. So staff came up with 2 proposals. One is the Sunset Panorama neighborhood. Even though it doesn't say Fairview, it does include Fairview. If you look at the resolution, it says Sunset Panorama and Fairview. So even though the staff report just doesn't have the words Fairview, it is that whole neighborhood. So all that neighborhood is being proposed to be rehabilitated, and the cost for that is about $2.6 million. The other part of the project is to do some treatment on the west side streets. And if we want to go to the map.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping they could show. They could do that.
So this is one of the options is the Sunset Fairview neighborhood. So that includes Panorama, Glencrest, all the streets that are shown there in red. So all those streets are being proposed to be addressed, to be maintained. On this page also is 26th Street from Riverside to to where it dead ends to the west. And then if you go to the next page, exhibit, we have some west side streets that we're proposing to do as well. This would be the red ones. And in the way that we try to do streets, we try to finish them in blocks. And if you notice, the green on 10th Street was done a few years back. And then there's some on the lower side, Second and Oak were done just last year. So we just want to complete those blocks of street. And so we're proposing the red streets to be done with this additional J20 reserves that's been made available. And I think that concludes my presentation, if there's any other questions.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond.
Quick question, Ditas, especially up there on Fairview, I'm very familiar with the area too, and a lot of the impact to the roads was the trees coming from the yards. How are we going to address that moving forward, the roots?
Well, part of the rehabilitation, if there's tree roots that has impeded and caused upheaval in the surface, would be to remove the tree roots, apply some herbicides to the tree roots so that they don't do it again in the future. But those are all part of the way we do street maintenance.
That's what I want to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from council? Mr. Gregory, anything else?
I'm ready to make a motion.
We're ready to receive one, sir. Oh, wait a minute. Excuse me. Before you do that, Chris, you had a point on item 8.
I think just redirecting staff to look at item B or exhibit B for I-8, that suffices. It has the...
Okay. So you're good.
They'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out. Yes. Okay, we're ready, Mr. Gregory. Oh, excuse me.
Good catch, Mr. Bausch. We'll get that corrected.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory, you're up.
So I move that we approve the additional street and road maintenance on Sunset and Pamarana neighborhoods and prioritize that first.
Second.
Lights approve the appropriation $3.5 million from Measure J20 funds with the addendum from Mr. Bausch.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Bausch. If there's no further discussion.
And just to be clear, so we're voting just on item number 9 of consent calendar?
9.
Okay.
I'll make a motion here in a minute. Yeah.
Okay, so this is just item number 9. This is not the full consent calendar. Okay, on item number 9, if there's no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye, motion passes unanimously. And now for the remainder of the consent calendar.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'd go and make it. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion then on the remainder of the consent calendars, item 1 through 8.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Hammond, seconded by Councilman Gregory to approve the remaining items on the consent calendar. If there's no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And just to further enhance our communications with the public, and those who may have been confused by the holiday schedule, the changeover from the city website, and all the other difficulties in getting information over the last week, I will ask our Assistant City Manager to please give us a brief report on the items that were approved on the consent calendar so everyone can know what we've done.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, there were 9 items on your consent calendar tonight. The first item was approved. It was the approval of the minutes from your last regularly scheduled council meeting. The second item was a receipt of advisory body minutes, specifically from the December 8th Library Board. The third item was a reaffirmation of a resolution that allows under state law remote and or hybrid remote type meetings. So that was a procedural action. Item 4 is the receipt of the warrant register of payments made by the city for the last period. Items 5 and 6 were treasury reports, which are a bit more in-depth financial reports for the months of September and October of last year. Item 7 was actually a very exciting item. It's the receipt of or the authorization to proceed with a grant award that the city received in the amount of about $120,000 for some extraction tools for the fire department. Item 8 was an approval of a license agreement with Premier Ag Products to do work out on vacant land at the airport, and in turn, the city will receive a certain percentage, 10% of gross sales of the crop that's produced within those undeveloped ag-related areas on the airport property. And then, of course, item 9, as talked about, was additional funding from Measure J20 that was appropriated into and will be used for additional street repairs and rehabilitation on those streets that Ditas mentioned.
Thank you very much. Before we go into public hearings, would anyone like a short break or good to go?
If you would.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, so we will proceed now with our public hearings. K1, acceptance of final map PR 16-0165, recordation and annexation into CFD 2005-1, 301 Creston Road, Carol S. Isabel Revocable Living Trust. Can we have a staff report, please?
Sorry for the delay, Council. David Athy, City Engineer. So the applicant has been unable to provide the relevant documents for this final map and annexation into CFD 2005-1. And so we're recommending continuation of this item to a date uncertain. We plan to renotice this. Once we receive the documents, I have a chance to check them and get it on the council.
Very good. So we're going to delay this without opening the public hearing. We'll open the public hearing at such time as it comes forward. Mr. Gregory? Was that you, Mr. Gregory?
Maybe he thought you wanted to take.
Oh, no, I'm good. Any questions of staff on this? No. Any public comment? No one in the room. I see no one rising. I would entertain.
Continuation to a date uncertain.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Strong, second by Councilman Hammond. If there's no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory? Councilmember Gregory, you're muted.
Maybe offline.
Yeah. Let's pause the vote until they get a chance to talk to Mr. Gregory. See, we're going to take a short recess anyway, whether we want it or not.
There you go.
Hear you, obviously. We heard a little muffling.
We can hear you in the meeting as well.
That's weird. So I tried to direct.
You're in the meeting. We can hear you.
You're on, Steve.
Oh, Chris, you are.
Did you hear the motion?
Hear you a moment ago.
No, it's okay. So should I?
Hang on, we're getting straightened out here.
Councilmember Gregory, you're going to need to unmute the device you're in the meeting on and hang up the phone call. Councilmember Gregory, if you can hear me, I'm going to remove you from the meeting and ask you to rejoin, and you'll come into the meeting unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
We can. Councilman Gregory, did you hear the last motion?
Oh, man.
Councilman Gregory,
What's going on here?
this is Councilmember Strong. I made a motion to continue to a time uncertain as recommended by staff. We're waiting for your vote, aye or nay.
Called on Gregory. Shit.
Shall we?
Let's see. Password.
Councilmember Gregory, we can hear you if you can hear us.
We're hearing you.
We feel your pain.
We do feel your pain.
That comment I made earlier about anybody older than me. He is older.
If he ever hears you recording this.
Mayor, one option, I think what we could do is recess, and with the existing motion on the floor, we have a first and a second in the vote. So when we came back from a 5-minute recess with technical difficulties, we would just have that open motion, and we could do that.
Very good. So let's take 5 minutes and see if we can iron out the glitches. All set? Okay, we will end our recess, bring the Paso Robles City Council back to order. We have an open motion on the floor. Could we have that repeated, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I made the motion that we continue a public hearing item K1 for a date uncertain per staff recommendation.
Thank you. And the second was by?
Hammond, second.
Mr. Hammond. And do we want to let's redo the roll call so there's no confusion about this vote, please.
Okay, Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
I'm sorry, I have a question. What is item K1? I don't have it in front of me.
It's the acceptance of the final map being continued to a date uncertain for 301 Creston Road.
Okay, that's fine. Aye.
And Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Discussion items. Item L1. We have the election of a mayor pro tem, assignment of council members to regional bodies, ad hoc committees, and as liaisons to advisory bodies. This has been continued from December 20th. For those who haven't been through this process, the council chooses a mayor pro tem, and then after that, we'll consider the committee assignments, which I've drawn up and council members have had the opportunity to review. And assuming that's approved, then we all have our assignments for the next couple of years. So, Melissa, are you going to handle the nominations, or do you want me to?
No, sir. You can you
Very
can
good. For
make
the
your
office
determinations and then do a motion, and we'll go through a roll call vote.
For the office of the designation as Paso Robles Mayor Pro Tem, I open the floor for nominations.
Mr. Mayor?
Mayor Martin is.
I've got Mr. Strong online. Hang on, Mr. Strong, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to nominate John Hammond.
Very good. We have a nomination for Mr. Hammond. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Second by Gregory.
I have a motion by Councilman Strong, and Councilman Bausch got in just ahead of the line there. Are there any other nominations for Mayor Pro Tem? Hearing none, I'll close nominations and ask for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be there whenever you need me.
We appreciate that greatly. I believe you've all had a chance to see the draft of committee assignments and alternative positions for our different committees and liaison positions. Are there any comments on that before Mr. Strong?
Yes, I think in light of Councilman Hammond taking on more responsibility once again as Mayor Pro Tem, that I've asked if he would allow me to take over the position, his second position with the youth
Youth Commission. I'll be happy to let you do that. That'd be fine.
Okay, so
and I've been with that and working on a project with them for a couple of years.
Is that the primary?
No, second, alternate.
Alternate.
Chris Bausch.
Yeah, Chris is going to be the delegate. I'll be the alternate.
So Mr. Strong will be the alternate for the Youth Commission.
And I don't know if you still want to do anything about Sports Council, youth sports or not.
I've had a hard time making that meeting on Mondays. I'll still do it if no one else wants to.
I'd be willing to.
Are you?
Yes.
Would you? Oh, I think Mark Dart would love to have more representation from the council, and they're all online. So if you can do that, that would be great. Sure. Fred, thank you.
Okay, very good. So Fred will take over those two positions. Any other substitutions or alterations requested?
Mr. Martin, this is Steve Gregory.
Mr. Gregory.
I haven't seen any revisions. So has there been a lot of changes, or was it the way it was on the agenda?
No, the list before us tonight is the same list that you had in front of you December 20th. There's been no revision.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
thank you very much.
Before we go to a vote on this, this is not something that I see multiple copies for the community here to see. I want to make sure the community understands who's getting what assignment.
Yeah, I think, and if there's anyone on the platform or out in the audience that wants to speak to the committee assignments, but I think it would be a great idea before we take the motion just to reiterate those changes. So I heard, I believe, Councilmember Strong as alternate for Youth Commission.
Youth Sports
Council.
And sports.
and Sports Council.
Oh,
Okay, thank you.
So the changes we have from the publicly posted agenda is to have Councilmember Strong with the Youth Sports Council and as alternative for the Youth Commission.
Right.
And were there any other changes?
None that I heard. Is there anybody in the room who would like to comment on the committee assignments before the council tonight? Is there anyone online wanting to comment?
No, sir.
Very good. We'll close public comment, bring it back to the council for a motion ratifying those assignments, please.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Hammond.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion with the list as amended for the liaisons and committees.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Hammond, second by Councilman Strong. There's no further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. L2, first quarter report, El Camino Homeless Organization Memorandum of Understanding. Is your microphone on?
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This evening, we do have representatives from ECHO here to provide their first quarter report. Before I invite them up, I wanted to provide a little bit of background on this item. In February of 22, you received a one-time funding request from ECHO Paso Robles to cover some operational and staffing costs that were not funded through other sources. As a result of that request, an ad hoc committee was formed to review the request and make recommendations to modify the existing MOU with the city and ECHO. The committee met 3 times and included participation from council members Gregory and Hammond. In August of 2022, City Council did approve a revised MOU with ECHO that incorporated the ad hoc committee's recommendations. This included the formation of a community stakeholder committee, as well as a requirement for ECHO to establish a 24-hour phone line available to stakeholders to report urgent issues, and submission of quarterly accounting and statistical reports to the city prior to the funds being issued. Under the revised MOU, payments will be made to ECHO quarterly, on a quarterly basis, and they will not exceed $222,000 per fiscal year for a total of $444,000 over the next 2 years. In November of 2022, ECHO did complete its first quarter under the revised MOU, and they provided the city with the updates, data, and financial reports required in the agreement. This was all included in your agenda packets this evening. And tonight, I have ECHO here to present their first quarterly report, and we are asking council to receive and file the report and direct staff to issue the first payment of $55,500. I'd like to now introduce Wendy Lewis, the President and CEO of ECHO, and Kate Swarthout, the Operations and Client Services Manager.
So thank you to the mayor and the council for this opportunity to present what's been happening in the first quarter, and especially to have the faith in us to provide the funding to make the work possible. We have had some wonderful successes and people get housed. We've also feeding a lot of people. So I'm going to turn it over to Kate, who's our Operations and Client Services Manager and has oversight in Paso, and I will be here to help as well. So here's Kate from our team.
Good evening, Mayor Martin and council members. Thank you for having us here today. I wanted to get started talking about our attachment, talking a little bit about our case management services. So if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and read this to you. ECHO Paso Robles operates a 50-bed shelter comprised of both nightly shelter stays and our 90-day program. 3 case managers on staff offer case management to all clients, and this includes our 90-day, nightly, and dinner clients, including outreach in the community. Our case management is tailored to each client's individual needs and can include things like life skills classes, which is budgeting, credit repair, how to create a resume, job interviewing preparations, and much, much more. Case managers currently work with 76 clients on a regular basis, and that was as of the end of November when this quarter ended. Case managers and shelter staff discuss with clients at weekly meetings and as needed throughout the day proper behavior both at the shelter and in public to mitigate impacts on local businesses. And our case managers and other ECHO staff work with dinner and nightly clients daily to discuss departure from the shelter in the mornings when they leave at 7, and in the evenings if they are just coming for dinner. And again, to mitigate problems with local businesses. And clients are asked not to linger in our Black Oak corridor, not to leave trash on the streets, and not to disturb local businesses as well. So these are some of our statistics from our first quarter. There are a lot of numbers on the screens, but I just wanted to highlight a few of them. One is that first one, unduplicated nightly shelter stays. We had a quarterly total of 271, so that is 271 different people that were able to get shelter stays throughout that quarter. So a nice, warm, safe place to stay at night. The other one I wanted to highlight is our total shelter stays. That is 3,997 for the quarter. So those are, I just love that number. Do you want to talk a little bit about that one, Wendy?
Yeah, so that number is sometimes hard to wrap your head around, but what it means is that somebody had a safe place to sleep and be out of elements and be in a place. So it includes our numbers from the 271. So somebody in that 271 might have stayed 10 times. Somebody in that 271 might have stayed 90 days. So it encompasses all of that. So it's a harder number to wrap yourself around, but it really is someone having a head on a pillow and having a safe place to be while they're getting all these supportive services. One of the other numbers we wanted to highlight is dinners alone. Each night, dinner is served to anybody who needs that nutrition and that hot meal. Those meals are brought in from the community. So that is the citizens of Paso Robles coming together, whether it can be a church group, to a family, to a service club, that is provided by our community, and I always love to highlight that. We also provide breakfast for the people who've stayed with us overnight, and we work with the food bank to provide no-cook bags to people who aren't able to stay with us and during our outreach program. So ECHO was founded on food and coming together over food, that basic need, and we continue that work with the support of the community.
So next, I just wanted to talk about the additional services that we offer at the shelter. We do have programs that are offered weekly, bi-weekly, and monthly, or just as needed. Some of our weekly and bi-weekly services we offer are free cell phone service. Those are the Obama phones. We have someone on site weekly that can help people get signed up for that. We have on-site mental health evaluations from TIMA. We offer haircuts. We have a doctor who's there weekly to do evaluations and referrals. We do arts and crafts program, story time and game times, and we do substance abuse and education as well. And then we also have CalFresh. Social Services is out to help people with CalFresh applications and questions. And we also hold vaccine clinics for COVID-19 vaccines and influenza vaccinations as well. And we are always building those programs. So currently in the works, we have someone who is coming out to do a clean slate program. And we also have other programs that we're always developing. So that's something that we really take pride in, is offering a lot of enrichment activities at the shelter. Do you want to talk about this next part?
Oh, just so as Kate mentioned, a lot of the services that we provide is the community to coming together to bring that partnership to serve the people that we're helping. And one of the topics that came up a lot in the ad hoc process was mental health support and behavioral health support. And we continue to work very closely with some partners from public health, behavioral health, and CAPSLO. And we're very hopeful to bring more on-site mental health support in the next coming months. So those conversations continue, us working with collaboratively to bring that partnership continues, because we knew that was one of the priorities from the ad hoc process.
So these are just some of the photos of our additional services. You can see there one of our clients getting a haircut, our TEMA staff out, and then we have our Slow Banger staff, and then our Dr. Kenny. I just wanted to share those with you.
So one of the other topics that came up quite often in the ad hoc process was how can we support a positive environment in that corridor of Black Oak as a neighbor. We strive to always be a good neighbor. We've had that tradition in our Atascadero shelter for years and years, and so we brought that with us to the city of Paso Robles and to our organization and our operation up there. So we have worked with the neighborhood. Kate and our team goes out and goes to businesses in that corridor from Denny's to the other side and around. So we really are going out, introducing ourselves very often, making sure that that communication with that neighborhood is ongoing and they're feeling supported by us. One thing that we added was from the ad hoc committee was that 24-hour line. So if somebody who is a stakeholder in that neighborhood has a concern or an issue, they can give us a call, document it, and then we can address it the best way we can. That phone has been in operation, staff takes notes, and we have not received one call. So I'm very proud to report that we really have shown that we've heard that neighborhood and we're working to really provide as best we can to be a supportive neighbor. We've also had added, but continue, if you look up in the picture, is some of our residents and some of our team and volunteers come together and they do regular trash pickups within that corridor as well. It might not necessarily be trash coming from the people we're serving, but we're just trying to be as supportive as neighbors as possible.
And lastly, we just wanted to share a couple of our success stories. Of course, we have many, many more, but these were some ones that really we felt like we wanted to highlight. First is the Odell family, and this is a father and two children that had fallen on some pretty hard times and entered our shelter and then were brought into our 90-day program. They worked really, really hard with their case manager to set goals and then meet those goals. And that was dad getting help with some mental health issues, really kind of learning some more parenting skills as well. And then with the support and encouragement from their case manager, Santana, as you can see there, they were able to eventually find permanent housing. And then we also were able to help them furnish that house with the help of some volunteers who had some things to donate. And the family is thrilled. They're very happy. They're in a 3-bedroom house. The kids both have their own rooms, and they're just doing really, really well. Dad's working full time, so. And the other one we wanted to highlight was an employment success story. And Jackie came to us with just her car and some clothing. She had been making some money doing Instacart with her vehicle, which was great, but she really wanted more for herself. So she started working with our case managers and applied for a job at a local grocery store. We were able to help her just double check her resume, make sure it all looked good before she applied for that job. And she is doing so well at that job and loves it so much. She has actually brought 3 of our other clients on board as well and recommended them to her manager. And now they have all gotten gotten employed at that grocery store and are all looking to rent a house together. So yeah, it's been great.
So a couple more things to add. One of the things that we heard during the ad hoc committee as well is ECHO always looks for many, many sources of funding. It's kind of like putting lots of pieces together in order to do what we do. This support from the city was a very significant part of one of those pieces, but we are looking to add events in Paso Robles, fundraising events, and we're so excited to announce that we have a partnership with Studios on the Park to bring an Empty Bowls event. Empty Bowls is one of our flagships. It happens in April in the Atascadero. It's well attended. The community loves it, and we are going to do an evening version of that here with partnership on Studios on the Park, and that's just one of many events that we plan to bring to the city of Paso Robles to help raise funds to continue this work. So we, again, thank you for the support, and we're here to answer questions and would love to hear what you guys want to hear more from us.
Very good, thank you. Council questions before we go to the public? Mr. Bouch?
This is, Wendy, you and I served together on the future study for the unhoused. I've been contacted by a couple of different people that participated in that study as well and are asking, so what is the city ever going to do about that? What would be your response? I know ECHO has done a great job. Thank you very much for a great report, by the way. Any thoughts on what we can share? I know the community is looking for answers, and I'm not sure what to say.
To bring, kind of duplicate our type of services in other communities. Yeah, it's...
Or expand them, I think, is what two of these people are saying specifically. What is Paso Robles going to do about that?
Yeah, it always comes down to funding. The funding is the key. The county is currently working on a 5-year plan to reduce homelessness by 50%. It's been adopted by the Board of Supervisors, and that's the question that most all communities recognize more needs to be done. It is, what is the funding to bring that to that community and then sustain that program on an ongoing basis? So that's the big question. There's a lot of people who have expertise or really could bring what that programming might look like, but it's that funding source for that ongoing, because it's not just providing a place for people to be, whether it's in different types of looking at, is it safe parking, is it, tiny home villages. You need that, but you need the supportive services that keep that happening. That's truly the key. If you look at what we do, it's quality staff that care about the people that we're serving. I was speaking to a gentleman yesterday who just recently got housing, and he said that he would not be in the place he's at had ECHO not been there from him. A long-term citizen of Paso Robles, and he said it was the staff and that they cared, and that's what you have to duplicate.
Thanks, Wendy. Thank you, Kate.
Mr. Hammond.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question of you, Wendy, or Kate. With the massive river flood that we had, how did that impact you and your operations? I mean, clearly a lot of our clients are homeless or in the riverbed. And so how did that impact ECHO directly?
Yeah, so in both communities, we saw that really negatively affect the people that are unhoused. We as an organization tried to provide during what we could. So opened up for day stay in Paso Robles and invited people in to just be safe and warm. Had our shower program going, something as basic as a hot shower and a change of clothing to get out of just wet. I've never seen people come to us just dripping. So many have lost everything they had, from their clothing to important documents like birth certificates and IDs, and that's where ECHO and our outreach program can step in and support those people for those first basic steps. It might be a tent or a sleeping bag just because they lost everything, but then it's that engagement that says, what's the next step to move you forward and not have you be in a riverbed, not have you be in this emergency situation again, because I am just so thankful that we did not lose somebody with this emergency that we had, and I think that's how the city addressed it and the community got the message out. But yeah, it's been pretty hard to see, story after story of someone coming to us and saying, I lost everything. The community is stepping up. We've messaged out, we need jackets, socks, men's tennis shoes, all these things that, we had people come to us that didn't have shoes on their feet, that we had to figure out how can we help this person in this moment, but then also long-term with that engagement.
Yeah. No, I think so.
Well, just a comment again, North County's blessed by ECHO. I mean, if it wasn't for you guys, I don't know where we'd be, but partnership with you folks have been a blessing. So thank you guys.
Other council questions? Mr. Gregory, I haven't called on you.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. I just wanted to say thank you to Wendy and her staff. The stories of, I think it was one of your staff members that came up with the idea to do the cleanup around Echo and in the neighborhood. And that staff person actually came through Echo, if I'm speaking right. And it's good to see that return to the community where you're working in. I don't know what we could do in situations like we've been through like this more than you've been able to do through this rainstorm because of capacity. But I don't know, maybe in the future, Wendy, it might be a good idea for all of us to get together and talk about it in advance, maybe to try to help all these people and what they've lost. So other than that, I'd like to compliment on the job you're doing. Your numbers are tremendous, and I'm very encouraged by the success of your program, getting so many people housed and so many people in jobs. It's really and truly what we need to do is to help these people and encourage them to get back on track. And your staff is doing an amazing job, and we just thank you for all you're doing. That's it for me. Thank you.
Mr. Strong?
Well, I was interested in your comment about having to find clothing to replace. And I'm wondering if you're working with any of the local organizations that collect clothing and things like Goodwill, or I guess some of the disabled people have their own stores and collections.
Well, the only one that we've worked with recently are the Coats for Kids organization. They actually were able to, after their big event at the fairgrounds, this was a few weeks ago, they brought us all of their leftover jackets for both shelters, which was amazing. We just have a lot of people in the community who donate. We have people coming all day long, every day, especially lately, bringing donations. So no other organizations, just people in the community.
I'm wondering if you did any outreach to some of these organizations. I'm thinking of one up there on
NC.
Yeah, NCR, because they probably reject some of the clothing because it needs repairs. And if you have people in crafts or things that need to help them do things or learn things, if maybe you couldn't have a collaboration that would be mutually beneficial.
Definitely. It's a wonderful suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
So a couple of questions. You mentioned the 24-hour phone line, and you had not received a call on that?
No, we haven't.
Okay, and then your stakeholder meetings, are they attended well by the surrounding business people?
They haven't been yet, but I am hopeful that our meeting next week will be.
Okay, and then how's your relationship with the county down here at CHC at Fourth and Pine? They have new counseling facilities and whatnot. Do you have a relationship there?
Referrals. Oh, yes, we definitely do referrals. We also transport, if we have clients who are in need, we can transport them there for appointments as well.
Very good. Thank you. That does it for council questions. It's time for the public to chime in. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make a comment on this issue? I see no one coming forward. I see no one waiting in line online.
We do have a caller online who just
Very
called
good.
in, sir. I don't have a name. Oh, it looks like it's Jan Albin.
Welcome.
Hi, good evening again. This is Jan Albin. I have a question for Wendy because I see this a lot online. People, the main issue they have is that when they go to shop at Grocery Outlet or Tractor Supply, they often talk about being confronted, by a homeless person. And my comment is, they say, well, why do they have to be there? Why can't they be somewhere else? And my response to that is always, where would you suggest they go? And so I'm sort of asking Echo, is there anywhere for these folks during the day to go to hang out rather than the parking lots for the restaurants or for Grocery Outlet or any of that? Is there somewhere that these folks can be guided to some other type of daytime shelter, if you will? And I don't even necessarily mean something indoors, but just somewhere where they can go rather than just wandering the streets.
Okay, we'll get an answer to that. We'll get an answer to that after public comment is closed. Is there anyone else online that would like to speak?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll close public comment. Please, if you could respond to that question, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so a couple points. Our outreach case manager would be someone who would be going out throughout that corridor and throughout the community. So bringing case management conversations to the people that are in those areas, having conversations on there is places or there's opportunities and resources. One of them is our day program, and I'll have Kate talk about that.
Sure, we do invite people into the shelter during the day for the day program. We also let them know that they can meet with case management while they're there, charge their phones, get out of the inclement weather, get a meal as well. So we are always inviting people that we see around the community to be at the shelter during the day.
So there is an option, and this is not a case where you can say you must be here, you can't be there, but there is an option.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you. If there's no further discussion from the council, I'd entertain a motion. Mr.
This is
Hammond?
Steve Gregory. I'd like to make.
Yeah, go ahead. Steve, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to move that we approve, that we receive and file ECHO's first quarterly report and direct staff to disperse the funds in the amount of $55,000.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Strong. If there's no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ladies.
Well done. Thank you, ladies.
Item number M, city manager report. Anything going on in the city?
Nothing, Mayor, at all. Just 3 items for you this evening. The first is a notice to the council and to the public that the county has notified the city that they will no longer be providing COVID-19 testing at the train station as of the end of this month. Their lease agreement actually expired at the end of the calendar year, but through some holdover provisions in the contract, we were able to extend them through today, essentially, for the first go around. However, given that we were going to extend them from today through like another 6-month contract before we found out that they were going to be losing the funding for the site. So rather than go through a full lease extension for another 13 days, we issued an administrative letter last week that allows them to hold over under the same provisions of their contract through the end of the month. We just wanted to provide that clarity for the public and the council. Re-emphasizing, as we did last week, that readyslow.org is going to be the best website for private party damage reports from last week's storm impact. Again, that's important as we can continue as a region to assess damages and open up funding that may become available. And actually, Chief Sternetta provided a message to me this evening that we received word that San Luis Obispo County has been added to the federal declaration for individual assistance as a result of last week's storm. Really what that means is individual households will now be able to access certain financial and direct services eligible through FEMA that have been affected by the disaster. That is a big step. We are going to have more information in the coming days, including passing along and coordinating with the county on any important documentation or other information that will be relevant. But that is a very positive development as of about an hour ago. Thank you.
Very good. Council Business Committee reports. Mr. Gregory?
I would just like to thank our staff again for all the hard work everybody did over the last 10 days and dealing with the excess water and all the flooding. We have a wonderful team of people to protect us and support us, and I just appreciate everything they've done and thanking the community for everybody just contributing and getting through it. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only county meeting I had was integrated waste management. Nothing really to report back to council on that, just normal business. I will also report that in your stead, Mr. Mayor, I attended the EOC briefing with our elected officials. We had, this is last Saturday after the flood, Assemblywoman Dawn Addis, Senator John Laird, Congressman Jimmy Panetta, representatives from Carbajal and such too. Supervisor John Pershong and Bruce Gibson were there too. And I got to tell you, it was a very impressive meeting, in my opinion. We had all of our city staff there. You guys did great. I mean, absolutely. It's really cool to be part of a group that has so much professionalism and shines, when it needs to happen. And again, I made comments to our elected officials that, that this just doesn't happen overnight. These people train and they did a very well job for everything that happened and was thrown at them over the past week and a half. So kudos to you guys. Very well done. Thank you.
Excellent. Councilman Strong.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I didn't realize till I was preparing this report just how busy I've been. But starting at the beginning of the month, we had a joint SLOCOG SORTA meeting. That's the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments and the San Luis Obispo Regional Transit Authority. And Transit Authority is in straits financially because of escalated costs, especially fuel. Also requirements coming down from higher up above to convert to non-polluting vehicles, and they're being encouraged to use electric and facing a problem that they cannot use electric on Route 9 because there isn't any electric bus made today or in the foreseeable future that can climb the grade. So they have to go to a different type of vehicle, and they're looking at other things that are less polluting and hoping they will get their waiver and be able to use those in order to retain service. So we're working on that. Executive Director got rave reports from everybody as to how well he's been doing. So his evaluation went extremely well. And then further, we went on and did a lot with the SLOCOG and with the joint effort. And the first thing that we found there was in the handout that I've given you, that we are getting more money than we thought in the coming year and few years. First, through our efforts at National League of Cities and at the National Association of Regional Councils, along with some congressional help, we retained our urban designation to avoid transportation money reductions and got an increased allocation for the Highway 46 East Y project, which may not be in the city, but affects our residents significantly and our region, boosting that allocation to $206.4 million. And that is going to be a tremendous interchange. We also got money committed for improvements in Niblick Road in 2023 and in 2024-25. In 2023, we're getting $922,000. And if we come up with approximately $3.2 million in local funds for matching, we'll receive nearly $12.9 million in 24-25. And that will pretty well pay for what we're needing to do on Niblick Road. And then the board, thank you for reappointing me to my positions there, because that is the basis on which the board then also elected me once again to be its representative on the LOSAN Pacific Learner Surfliner Board of Directors, as well as our delegate to CalCog, NARC, and the Central Coast Highway 101 Coalition. So both CalCog and NARC have in turn elected me to their respective boards of directors and appointed me to CalCog's executive committee and as NARC's national chairman of transportation policy for 2024 and possibly beyond. So that's that. Then we went on and we had a library board of directors meeting, and the reports there, thank you, Angelica. Again, everything is just going swimmingly. The one thing that's down is the new cards, and that's because we've done so many already. When the county pulled out of black gold, all of a sudden none of those people could use our library anymore. And so they have been saying, what, we can't come here and use your library? And they've been coming in droves, thousands of cards that we've issued. It's finally up to such a huge amount that there aren't that many new ones coming in. So that's a little easier on staff, but it still means we've got great use of our library in every single aspect. And that staff is just tremendous. Had a Main Street meeting last night, and along with Councilman Bausch, and I'll let him give a lot of that report. We did have a presentation on water, which we both had a little concern over because it seemed to be a little one-sided, didn't represent the city's position very well. But it was a consultant that is primarily a consultant to some of the people who have in confrontation with us over certain rights. So, but one of the things that came up, I think that's very important for us to note, and especially to note with our possibly our hoteliers and their association and our Travel Paso Association, as well as possibly the Wine Country Alliance. And that is that Main Street gets these every year and every month, I guess, and they pass them out to people who are visitors. And it's the state visitor guides. And it's put out by visitcalifornia.com. And San Luis Obispo's in here. Paso Robles isn't even mentioned. Not one single thing in Paso Robles is mentioned anywhere in any of their books. And probably because San Luis Obispo is probably a member. And my question is, we should be asking, I think, some of our people who are trying to encourage our tourism, why they're not members, so that we could get equal time at least in this magazine called Best of California, and the other one, this California Road Trips, because these are circulated by the thousands, and I think we ought to have a presence there. So maybe we should talk to them. All right, that's my report.
Just a quick segue on those magazines. I believe Main Street was one of the original advertisers when those magazines first came out. I believe that was last year or the year before. So that's why you see those copies all over the Main Street office. So, but yeah, it's a great magazine to advertise in, and maybe sharing some of that with the other travel representatives for Paso Robles is a good idea. First, I just want to say thank you again to staff, to all of our safety personnel, Jonathan and Chief Nord, and Chris, everybody at the EOC. Thank you very much for a great response. I haven't heard any complaints about anything that the city of Paso Robles did to deal with the forces of Mother Nature. So thank you. Thank you also to everyone who put on the New Year's Eve party. That was just a fun event. Thank you, Frida. Thank you, Angelica. It was well attended in spite of the weather. Amazing bonfire, great food. The wine was nice. Hopefully we can do that again next year. Attended Martin Luther King Day yesterday in the park. It was a beautiful day until the event ended. We started to do the march, and then we got a little bit of a downpour. And that didn't spoil the spirit. It was a great event, so thank you so much for hosting that again. The Main Street, if you haven't touched or kind of forgot about sleepy old Paso Robles Downtown Main Street Association, there's a new energy down there. I've been on that board for many, many years. We have some new folks that have come on board. Jeffrey Wiesinger's taken over as president and energized with some new board members. I'd like to welcome Julie Richardson, Camilla Burns, Andrea Phillips, Anna Rodriguez, Raymond Smith, and Garrett Wash. Great events over the holidays, including a gift tree drawing, all the volunteer events, downtown park and Christmas tree lighting and Santa Claus. There is a new way to access what's going on. So check out PasoRoblesDowntown.org and make sure you sign up for the newsletter. And then I've got a couple of items to consider for future agenda requests. I don't know if we want to do that now or so. As I mentioned earlier during the ECHO presentation, we have people that are asking and continuing to ask what's going to happen with our homeless situation. The point was made that the riverbed has been washed clean, and it might be a good opportunity to address keeping it clean. I don't have a good plan of action for that. I don't know if that's something that council would direct staff to come back with something that might be able to take advantage of this potential silver lining to otherwise rather nasty storm. The people I've talked to are addressing the unhoused future studies, I'm not sure that that's quite there yet, just taking small steps that we might be able to just keep the riverbed clean, just to help prevent fires and prevent the needles and the trash and the waste that's going on in the river when we're not watching. So
If I might, Chris, I would suggest that the council direct staff to put together a post-disaster report on the impact of the storms on the river and the riverbed, debris. I've had people ask about impacts on bridges.
Right.
If we get kind of evaluation of where we are now and what steps need to take.
Very good.
Yeah, Chief Stornetta actually brought that up at our Saturday meeting with the electeds. All that wash, from the south of us here that is collected around the trees and such, and it's going to be a bit of a mess there. But
so, how is that enough direction to bring that forward in the future?
Yes, I think so. If we're talking specifically about the riverbed impacts of the storm, and then what kind of the future holds for the conditions of the riverbed, that's my understanding, and that's what we can prepare.
And actually, I will say too, John Laird actually asked the question about keeping him informed on any of our efforts that get pushed back, so to speak, by other agencies. It sounds like he's interested in keeping the riverbed as clean as possible too.
Yes. So as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, we did have some of that information already prepared as part of a presentation, so we can up that. There's going to be some additional information we'll need to include, but yes, direction is clear.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And the second item I would like council to consider is how do we do live stream of both audio and visual of our meetings, starting perhaps with council meetings and then going out to some of our other advisory meetings as well. Some of the pushback has been, well, it's expensive. We're not quite sure if we have to add another person to do it. And I know you guys kind of get a little upset when I bring it up, but if the Paso Robles Joint Unified School District can figure out a very cost-effective, minimally impactful way of doing their school board meetings, would ask that we might consider meeting with Scott Buller over at the Paso District and find out. He's the IT director over there, and what kind of secrets and he might be able to share to bring this forward, to bring true live streaming to our meetings.
If I may on that, the county does it all the time. In fact, I've been on Slocog in Florida. Those meetings are televised immediately. And our charter, through their cable, actually offers a channel where they are broadcast. Many of them are broadcast live, and then they're rebroadcast later. But there's a particular group out of Morro Bay whose offices are currently flooded, but they're being repaired, that does that. And their equipment is in vans that they can transport to various locations.
I think the equipment that the school district uses would fit on this desk right here. It's small. Yep. I don't think we need to get anything quite that. And they just do it live YouTube. And again, lots of different options. I recognize that.
I mean, that's one.
Maybe it's time to look at that.
Being used and gets televised out to people.
So I'm, without getting too far into the discussion, I'm familiar with the process used by the school district. It is a simple one. It's not an elaborate camera system that focuses on neutral faces. It's basically a wide shot. One camera gets it all. So what I would suggest is that staff bring us a range of options from a very simple system to one that would be much more complex with costs attached to that. We've talked about this before, and it's always seemed to be too expensive to us, but I think if we're going to talk about doing video in the future, then we have to come to a decision about what level of production to accept.
Yeah, and if we're talking about OWL, I have another organization that uses OWL, and it's disrupted almost every meeting we've had.
So let's get some options on that.
Thank you,
Mr. Bauer. Okay, so just a couple of things I wanted to mention here. It was brought up about the magazines on Travel California and whatnot. I was at the Travel Paso board meeting today, and I know from that board meeting, previous board meetings, they spend a great deal of time and expense on courting writers. Now, whether they solicit directly from the state organization, I don't know, but I'm sure they're in contact with them, at least through the county tourism organization they are. And most recently, they held a very successful webinar with 31 people attending and a very active conversation about coverage for Paso Robles. And I don't disagree that we want more coverage in every magazine out there, particularly one that talks about tourism at the state level. I just want the council to be assured that we're getting plenty of good coverage out there from other sources, and Travel Paso's done a good job at that. I also want to touch on base on public safety services, and people may think this is playing the fiddle again, but I know what it takes to handle the type of crisis that happened over the last 10 days, which looked before in the city of Paso Robles, and it taxes everyone to a limit. And I agree. I have not received one person contacting me saying, did this wrong, you should have done that. I think everybody recognizes the supreme effort that's been made by our public safety services, our other service personnel. Every single person on this staff was all hands on deck, giving 125%. And there's no doubt that we have negative impacts on the city, but those are minimized to the greatest extent possible by the efforts of our staff and also the efforts of the people in the community who volunteered and stepped up and said, how can we help make this happen? So once again, something I think we can be rightfully proud of and thankful for in the city of Paso Robles, and I certainly am. If there's a bright side to this, it's we finally got some rain. We've been praying for it for a long time. The last figure I saw was 4 inches above the average rainfall in the city of Paso Robles. I don't know how many years it's been since we were even at average rainfall.
I think we're at 18 inches right now.
18 inches
plus, yeah.
The lakes are filling up. Reports are the snowpack is heavy in the northern part of the state, which means come warmer weather, we're going to see greater water flow, which is going to help us all. Our challenge now, as it ever has been, is to capture and use that water so that as little as possible is wasted. I had an inquiry from one citizen about, can we do that now? And I had to say, those type of structures take years to plan and put in place, but this underscores the fact that we need to have strategies in place in the future so that when these things happen, we're able to capture and make as much good out of it as possible. So that's the good news, bad news about the rain. Finally, as the council knows, it's been a rocky holiday season for the market family. And I want to thank each and every one of you for stepping up with your support and helping us through that. Moving forward, I think that we're going to be fine, and I look forward to your continued support. And it's good to be back here tonight with you and working through the issues of the city. Deeply appreciate your friendship and your support. I have no list of upcoming events. Is there anything special you'd like to alert us to, Mr. Hood?
There we are. We just popped them up on the screen for you, Mayor.
And excuse me, Mayor Martin, we do have one minor point of clarification on the motion pertaining to ECHO. The amount listed in the motion was $55,000, and the actual amount that needs to be dispersed is $55,500. So we just need to make that point of clarification so that it's.
And the item's closed, so I think there was some discussion of 55,000 during the item, but just to note on the record that the disbursement as listed for staff's recommendation is 55,500.
The council recognize that that's disbursement. Any dispute of that?
No.
Okay. It's so stated.
Thank you.
Upcoming events, Development Review Committee, Monday, January 23rd, 3:30 p.m. Planning Commission meeting Tuesday, January 24th. Development Review Committee, Monday, January 16th, 3:30 p.m. Again, Development Review Committee, January 30th, 3:30 p.m. And we have a City Council special meeting set for Tuesday, January 31st at 6:30 p.m. And if there's no further business before the council, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
I have a motion by Councilman Strong, second by Councilman Hammond. If there's no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you all for your hard work.